I came home to find my mother crying on the porch as my cousin shouted, "Get out! This house is mine now!" I helped her into the car and made one quiet call. 30 minutes later, police lights filled the yard. "Sir," an officer said, "you're under arrest." I pulled into my grandmother's driveway at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday and saw my mother sitting on the porch swing, surrounded by cardboard boxes and garbage bags stuffed with clothes. She was crying into her coat sleeve. My cousin Ben stood over her, arms crossed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He was holding a ring of keys I'd never seen before, and he was smiling. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, jumping out of my Subaru. Mom looked up. Her face was blotchy and streaked with tears. "Ryan, he said I have to leave. He said it's his house now. He gave me 1 hour before he calls the police for trespassing." Ben turned toward me, that smile widening. "Stay out of this, Ryan. This is Miller property now. Your mother needs to accept reality and get off my land." "This is Grandma's house," Mom's voice cracked. "I've lived here for 6 months, since she died. You can't just—" "Was Grandma's house," Ben interrupted, pulling out a folded document from his jacket pocket. "Now it's mine. Quitclaim deed. Filed with Travis County this morning at 9:17 a.m. I also paid the $4,700 in back property taxes she forgot about. So legally, ethically, and financially, this is my house." He dangled the keys in front of Mom's face. "You have 43 minutes left. Then I'm calling the sheriff. Get off my property." I didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't grab him by his overpriced lapels and throw him off the porch like every cell in my body wanted to. Instead, I looked at my mother, really looked at her. She was 62 years old, had moved back into her childhood home to care for Grandma during the final stages of Alzheimer's, had quit her job, had spent 2 years changing adult diapers and cooking pureed meals and sitting up at night when Grandma got confused and tried to leave, had given up everything to make sure Grandma died with dignity. And now Ben, who'd visited exactly twice in those 2 years, both times to ask Grandma for money, was throwing her out like garbage. My rage went cold, precise, surgical. "Okay, Ben," I said calmly. His smug expression flickered for half a second. He'd expected a fight, expected drama. "We'll leave." "Smart choice, cousin." He checked his Rolex. 39 minutes. I helped Mom to my car, covered her trembling shoulders with the emergency blanket I kept in the trunk. Then I methodically collected her scattered belongings, the photo albums, the sewing basket, the suitcase full of clothes Ben had apparently thrown together in about 8 seconds. He watched the whole time from the porch, sipping what looked like Grandma's good bourbon. He thought my silence meant surrender. Fatal mistake. I loaded the last box into my car at 4:23 p.m., drove Mom around the corner to a Starbucks parking lot with a clear view of the house, held her trembling hand across the center console. "He was always so hungry," she whispered, "even as a boy, always looking at what other people had, calculating what it was worth. I never thought he'd actually do this." "It's going to be okay, Mom." "How?" "Ryan, he has the deed. He filed it with the county. I heard him on the phone with some title company. This is real. This is legal. I don't have money for lawyers. I don't have—" "Mom," I squeezed her hand. "Trust me, Ben has no idea who he's dealing with." Then I pulled out my phone. I didn't call 911. I called Christopher Delgado, senior partner at Delgado & Associates, estate planning and probate law, 27 years in practice, the man who'd helped me prepare for this exact moment 5 years ago. "Chris," I said when he answered, "it's Ryan Torres. Ben made his move. I need you to activate the protocol." "You're sure?" "I'm watching him drink Grandma's bourbon on what he thinks is his front porch." "I'm sure. Give me 30 minutes. I'll coordinate with the DA's office." I hung up and called my second number. Detective Andrea Walsh, Fraud Division, Travis County Sheriff's Office, 16 years on the force. She'd investigated a Medicare fraud case involving Grandma's nursing care 2 years ago, had become friendly with our family during the process. "Detective Walsh, it's Ryan Torres. Remember you said to call if Ben ever made a move on the property? He did it? Quitclaim deed. Filed this morning. He's evicting my mother right now. You have the documentation I asked for? All of it. Chris Delgado's coordinating. I'll get a warrant. Meet you there in 40 minutes. Third call, Laura Chen, Assistant District Attorney, White Collar Crime Division, specialized in elder abuse and financial exploitation. She'd prosecuted Ben's former business partner 3 years ago for real estate fraud. Had told me off the record that Ben was absolutely going to do something stupid eventually. Eventually had arrived. "Laura, it's Ryan Torres. Is this the call I've been waiting for? Ben filed a fraudulent deed transfer on my grandmother's property. He's currently illegally occupying it and threatening my mother with arrest." "Beautiful. I love it when they make it easy. Chris Delgado already called me. We're moving." I hung up and turned to Mom. "What did you just do?" she asked. "Something I should have done a long time ago. 5 years earlier, I'd been 26 years old, fresh out of law school, working as a paralegal while I studied for the bar exam, living with my girlfriend in a studio apartment in South Austin. Grandma had called me on a Sunday afternoon. "Ryan, honey, can you come over? I need to talk to you about something. Don't tell your mother." mother. I'd driven over immediately, found her in her garden, pulling weeds from around the tomato plants she'd been growing for 40 years. "What's going on, Grandma?" She'd sat down on the wooden bench Grandpa had built in 1987, looked out at the half-acre lot that had been in our family since 1962. "Ben came by yesterday," she said. "Wanted me to sign some papers. Power of attorney, he called it. Said it would make things easier. Help me pay bills. Manage accounts if I got sick." My stomach had tightened. "Did you sign?" "No." Something about the way he was looking at this house, she gestured at the modest 3-bedroom ranch, "like a wolf looks at a lamb, Ryan," made me uncomfortable. I'd sat down beside her. "Grandma, that instinct is right. Power of attorney can be dangerous in the wrong hands. If you give someone that authority, they can access your bank accounts, sell property, make legal decisions on your behalf. Even this house, especially this house, worth about $340,000 according to the latest appraisal, right?" She'd nodded. "Ben knows that, and he knows you're getting older. He's positioning himself." Grandma had been quiet for a long moment. "I want your mother to have this house, Ryan. She's the one who visits, who helps me, who'll take care of me when I can't take care of myself. Not Ben. He only comes around when he needs money. Then we need to protect that, make it ironclad, bulletproof." "How?" "Let me make some calls." I'd reached out to Christopher Delgado through a professor at UT Law who'd recommended him as the best estate attorney in Austin. Chris had met with me, Grandma, and Mom 3 weeks later. "Here's the situation," Chris had said, spreading documents across Grandma's dining table. "A will is contestable. Power of attorney can be abused. Even a standard deed transfer can be challenged, especially if there are allegations of undue influence or diminished capacity." "So what do we do?" Mom had asked. "We create an irrevocable living trust." He'd explained it clearly. In a living trust, Grandma would transfer ownership of the house to the trust itself. She'd name Mom as the primary beneficiary. Upon Grandma's death, the property would automatically transfer to Mom. No probate, no will contest, no opportunity for anyone to challenge it. "Once it's done, Chris had said. "Irrevocable means it can't be changed, even by Grandma, even if someone manipulates her into trying." "And Ben?" I'd ask. "Ben would have no claim, no standing to contest, no legal avenue to pursue. The house wouldn't be part of Grandma's estate. It would already belong to the trust, which would belong to your mother." Grandma had signed the papers that day, April 17th, 2019. The property had been quietly, legally transferred to the Torres family trust. Mom as primary beneficiary, me as secondary, Grandma as life estate holder, meaning she could live there until she died. We'd recorded it with Travis County, filed all the proper paperwork, made it official, and then we'd never mentioned it to anyone outside the three of us and Chris, especially not Ben. Ben had tried to get that power of attorney 3 more times over the next 2 years. Each time, Grandma had refused, made excuses, said she'd think about it. He'd gotten increasingly aggressive. "You're being paranoid," he'd told her during Christmas 2020. "I'm family. I'm trying to help you. Why don't you trust me?" "I trust you fine," Grandma had said. "I just don't need help right now." He'd left angry. In January 2021, Grandma had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Mom had quit her job as an administrative assistant to move in full-time. I'd helped coordinate care, visiting nurses, medication management, safety modifications to the house. Ben had visited exactly twice. Once in March 2021 to ask Grandma for $15,000 to invest in a business opportunity. She'd said no. He'd left within 20 minutes. Once in August 2021 to try again for that power of attorney. Grandma had looked at him with those clouded Alzheimer's eyes and said, "Who are you?" He'd been furious, had called me later that night. "Your mother is poisoning her against me," he'd said, "keeping me away, making her think I'm a stranger. This is elder abuse. Ben, she has Alzheimer's. She doesn't recognize a lot of people anymore. Convenient, right when I'm trying to help manage her affairs. She doesn't need you to manage her affairs. That house is worth $400,000 now. Someone needs to be thinking about property taxes, maintenance, what happens when she dies. We've got it covered. We, or you and your mother. Does it matter?" He'd hung up on me. I'd known then, with absolute certainty. When Grandma died, Ben would make a move, so I'd prepared. Grandma had died on September 3rd, 2023, peacefully, in her sleep. Mom had found her that morning, still in bed, looking more peaceful than she had in years. The funeral had been small, maybe 40 people. Ben had shown up in an expensive suit, playing the grieving grandson, had given a eulogy about how much he'd loved and admired her, had cornered me afterward. "We need to talk about the estate," he'd said. "What estate?" "The house, her accounts, her possessions. I've been thinking, as the oldest grandchild, I should probably take the lead on probate." "There's no probate, Ben." "What do you mean?" Grandma had everything in order. Trust, beneficiaries, all handled. His eyes had narrowed. "Who's the beneficiary?" "My mother." "That's not fair. I'm her grandson too. I have rights. You have nothing. Grandma made her choices. If you have a problem with that, talk to a lawyer." He had. 3 lawyers, actually. All had told him the same thing. If the trust was properly established, established, there was nothing he could do, so he'd gotten creative. 2 weeks after the funeral, Ben had shown up at the house with a notary, claimed he'd found an old power of attorney that Grandma had signed in 2018, before the trust was created. "This gives me authority to manage her estate," he'd said, waving the document at Mom. "Including this property." Mom had called me immediately. I'd called Chris Delgado. "That POA is meaningless," Chris had said. "Even if it's real, which I doubt, it died with your grandmother. Powers of attorney don't survive death, and even if it didn't, he can't undo a trust transfer that happened in 2019. What's he trying to do? File a fraudulent deed, use that POA to claim authority he doesn't have, transfer the property to himself. Can he do that? Technically, anyone can file anything with the county. Doesn't make it legal, but it might cause problems. Create a cloud on the title. Force your mother to hire lawyers to fight it. How do we stop him? We don't. We let him do it. Then we prosecute him for fraud." That's when I'd looped in Detective Walsh and Ada Laura Chen. "You want to set a trap," Laura had said. "I want to make sure when he commits fraud, he faces consequences." "I love the way you think." On November 14th, 2023, Ben had filed a quitclaim deed with Travis County. The deed purported to transfer the property from the estate of Margaret Torres to Benjamin Miller. It was notarized, looked official, had a case number and everything. There was just one problem. Margaret Torres hadn't owned that property since April 2019. The property belonged to the Torres Family Trust, and Ben had no authority over that trust. His deed was worthless, a legal fiction, a piece of paper that meant absolutely nothing. But he didn't know that. He thought he'd won. Now, at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, I sat in my car watching Ben celebrate his victory. He'd opened all the windows of the house, was blasting music, had brought a woman I didn't recognize onto the porch, probably some girlfriend he'd been keeping secret. Mom was staring at the house with devastated eyes. "I can't believe he's doing this," she whispered. "That house. I grew up in that house. Your grandfather died in that house. Your grandmother." "I know, Mom. And he's just partying like he won something. He thinks he did." My phone buzzed. Text from Chris Delgado. "Detective Walsh has the warrant. ETA 8 minutes. Laura Chen is with her. This is going to be good." I smiled. At 4:54 p.m., 2 unmarked police cruisers pulled onto the street, followed by a black sedan, followed by a Travis County Sheriff's vehicle. Ben must have seen them because the music cut off abruptly. He came to the front door, irritation on his face. Probably thought Mom had called the cops to complain about noise. Detective Walsh got out of the first cruiser. 40s. Fit. Badge clipped to her belt next to a holstered Glock. Ada Laura Chen got out of the sedan. 30s. Sharp suit, carrying a briefcase. Chris Delgado emerged from his Lexus. 60s. Gray hair. Dressed like he was about to argue before the Supreme Court. Ben stepped onto the porch. "Can I help you?" Detective Walsh walked up to him with that cop walk. Purposeful, authoritative, not someone you wanted to fuck with. "Benjamin Robert Miller?" "Yes." "What's this about?" She pulled out a piece of paper. "I have a warrant for your arrest." Ben's girlfriend gasped. He laughed. "Arrest? For what?" "This is a civil dispute. I have the deed. I filed it myself. It's public record. Grand larceny, forgery, and felony deed fraud," Walsh said flatly. "You have the right to remain silent. This is insane. I own this property. I have the legal documentation." "No," Laura Chen said, stepping forward. "You have a fraudulent document claiming to transfer property that hadn't belonged to Margaret Torres for 4 years. She opened her briefcase, pulled out a file. "The Torres Family Irrevocable Trust, established April 17, 2019, duly recorded with Travis County Clerk's Office. Property ownership transferred to the trust on that date. Margaret Torres was named life estate holder. Helen Torres, Ryan's mother, was named primary beneficiary." She showed him the document. "Your grandmother didn't own this property when she died. The trust did. And when she died, ownership automatically transferred to Helen Torres. Your quitclaim deed purports to transfer property from an estate that never owned it." Ben's face went white. That's not possible. I checked. I looked up the records. The property was in Grandma's name." "Was," Chris Delgado said, stepping forward. "Until 2019. The trust transfer is public record. You just didn't look hard enough, or maybe you didn't want to find it." "I didn't know. This is a mistake. I thought you could use a fraudulent power of attorney to steal your aunt's inheritance," Laura Chen said. "You forged a transfer of property you had no claim to. You changed the locks on a house you don't own. You evicted the lawful owner. That's not a mistake. That's a crime." Detective Walsh moved behind Ben. "Hands behind your back. Wait, we can work this out. This is family. We don't need police. You threatened to have the lawful property owner arrested for trespassing," Walsh said, cuffing him. "You filed fraudulent documents with the county. You committed real estate fraud. We absolutely need police." Ben's girlfriend ran to her car and peeled out of the driveway. Smart woman. "Chris," Ben was looking at my attorney now, desperate. "You know me. We're family. This is just a misunderstanding. Chris Delgado pulled out another document. Actually, Benjamin, we've never been family. But you're right that I know you. I know you convinced Margaret to sign a power of attorney back in 2018, before she met with me. I know you've been planning this for years, waiting for her to die so you could steal what she wanted to go to her daughter. He held up the paper. This is the POA you claimed gave you authority to file that deed. It's dated March 2018. It expired the moment Margaret Torres died. Using it to file property transfers is fraud. I didn't know that. I'm not a lawyer. You consulted 3 lawyers after Margaret's death. All of them told you the trust was ironclad. All of them told you to walk away. But you thought you were smarter than everyone. Thought you could find a loophole. Chris smiled. Shark smile. There was no loophole, Ben. Just your greed. Detective Walsh read Ben his rights while he sputtered about family loyalty and misunderstandings and how this was all a big mistake. Laura Chen was documenting everything on her phone. Benjamin Miller, you're being charged with felony theft by deception under Texas Penal Code 31.03. The property in question is valued at approximately $425,000. That makes this a first-degree felony. You're looking at 5 to 99 years in prison. Ben's knees buckled. Walsh caught him, walked him to the patrol car. As she loaded him into the back seat, he was crying. Please, I didn't mean to. I just needed money. I have debts. I made some bad investments. I just thought... You thought you could steal from your family, I said. He looked at me through the car window. You set me up. You knew this whole time. You let me. I protected my mother and honored my grandmother's wishes. You could have just accepted that. Instead, you committed fraud. This is entrapment. No, Laura Chen said. Entrapment is when law enforcement induces someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. You've been planning this for 5 years. We just let you go through with it so we'd have evidence to prosecute. The patrol car pulled away. Ben was still screaming about lawyers and family and justice. I walked to the porch where Mom stood with Chris and Laura. My hands were shaking now. Adrenaline crash. Chris put a hand on my shoulder. You did good, kid. Your grandmother would be proud. Laura Chen handed Mom a folder. These are the updated property records, showing you as the legal owner via the trust transfer. I've also filed a notice with the county that Mr. Miller's deed was fraudulent. It'll be expunged from the records within 72 hours. Mom was crying again, but different tears this time. I don't understand, she said. When did you? 5 years ago, I said, when Ben first started sniffing around for that power of attorney. Grandma called me. We set up the trust, transferred everything, made it ironclad, just in case. You never told me. Grandma wanted it to be a surprise, and we didn't want Ben to know. If he'd known the property was already in trust, he might have tried something different, something harder to prove. So you just waited for 5 years for him to commit fraud? We protected you. The fraud was his choice. Chris Delgado pulled out a key ring. These are the original keys. The locks Ben changed are technically destruction of property, another charge. But for now, I'd recommend changing them again, just to be safe. I took the keys, walked to the door. Ben had installed a fancy electronic smart lock, probably cost $400. I looked at Laura Chen. Can I? It's your mother's property. Do what you need to do. I pulled out my pocket knife and started unscrewing the smart lock from the door. Took me 4 minutes. The lock came off clean. Underneath was the original deadbolt, the one Grandpa had installed in 1987. I tried my grandmother's old key. It turned smoothly. The door opened. Mom started crying harder. I can go inside? It's your house, Mom. You can do whatever you want. She walked in slowly, touched the walls, the photos Grandma had hung, the furniture Grandpa had built, stood in the middle of the living room and just breathed. Chris Delgado was packing up his briefcase. I'll send you the final paperwork, updated deed, Ben's arrest record, everything you need to prove ownership if anyone questions it. How much do I owe you? I asked. Your grandmother paid me 5 years ago. Set up a retainer for exactly this scenario. She was a smart woman. Laura Chen was on her phone. DA's office is charging Ben with 3 felonies: grand theft, fraud, and criminal trespass. His bail hearing is tomorrow. Given the severity and the flight risk, I'm recommending a $100,000 bail. Will he make it? Doubt it. His finances are a mess. I pulled his credit report. He's $240,000 in debt, mostly gambling, some bad real estate deals. That's why he needed your grandmother's house, was going to sell it immediately to pay off his debts. Instead, he's going to prison for a long time. Even with a plea deal, he's looking at minimum 5 years, more likely 7 to 10. 6 months later, Ben took a plea deal. 7 years in state prison, restitution of $17,000 for the illegal locksmith costs, property damage, and Mom's moving expenses. Permanent restraining order preventing him from contacting any member of our family. The sentencing hearing was brief. Ben's public defender, a tired-looking woman who'd clearly tried to talk him into taking an earlier deal, had attempted to argue for leniency. Your Honor, Mr. Miller made a terrible mistake, but he's a first-time offender. He has no violent crime history. 7 years seems. Judge Patricia Moreno, 24 years on the bench, French, absolutely zero tolerance for real estate fraud, had cut her off. Counselor, your client spent 5 years planning to steal a $425,000 property from his own aunt. He filed fraudulent legal documents. He changed locks on property he didn't own. He threatened to have the lawful owner arrested. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated crime. She'd looked at Ben. Mr. Miller, greed makes people do stupid things. But this was next-level stupid. You had multiple opportunities to walk away. Instead, you committed felony fraud. 7 years is more than fair. The gavel had fallen. Ben had been led away in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. I hadn't felt triumphant, just tired. 1 year after that day in the driveway, I was having coffee with Chris Delgado at Mozart's on the lake. How's your mother doing? He asked. Good, really good. Actually, she's fixed up the house, painted the exterior, redid the garden. It looks better than it has in 20 years. And you? Past the bar, working at a small firm doing estate planning. Turns out there's good money in helping people protect their assets from greedy relatives. Chris laughed. You learned from the best. I learned from necessity. If we hadn't set up that trust, Ben would have gotten the house. Your mother would have been homeless. Justice would have been a lengthy civil suit with no guarantee of winning. You think Grandma knew that Ben would do this? I think she knew exactly who he was. That's why she called you. Why she set this up. She wanted to protect your mother, but she also wanted to teach Ben a lesson. Did it work? Chris sipped his coffee. He's in prison. Your mother has her home. I'd say yes.